computer. And but for those who are on right now, I would like to welcome you all to our information session on chocolate today. I mean, perfect timing right after the holidays when you feel like you should be getting away from all that stuff. But here we are still, and I'm thrilled that we have a wonderful guest speaker today. And Marilyn, I'm going to ask you to introduce her. But before I do, if anybody has any questions, please realize you're all on mute and that they can be included in the chat or the Q&A, one or the other, and we will ask them as we go along, if that's okay. Okay, Marilyn, I will pass it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Marty. And like you, I can't think of a better topic to start the new year, and especially on a day when we're getting some not so good weather reports, but nothing can be better than chocolate. I'm just, sigh. That's wonders for me. You've read the bio of our presenter in the CARP newsletter, so I'm not going to repeat that information. But I will tell you that I met Doreen Pengratz 2 years ago when she presented a chocolate and wine pairing to a group of friends. And she and I have kept in touch since. She has inspired me to check out chocolate in countries that I have visited. And two of the best were a wine and chocolate pairing seminar in Malta. That was followed by a half-day tour of the World of Wine Museum in Porto, Portugal, that had an extensive chocolate exhibit and did have a chocolate and wine pairing little seminar. It was amazing. And if I hadn't had the experience with Doreen prior to that, I might have passed up on those. So she's opened up a whole new world for me. It's been exciting. She has traveled extensively learning about chocolate and sharing her wisdom through seminars and a newsletter. And I know she's going to talk about that too. So please join me in welcoming Doreen Pengratz to CARP. Doreen.
Thank you so much, Marilyn, for the warm welcome. I indeed love doing the chocolate events, and Marilyn and I met in Matlock at Panema at a summer event outside, and then she hosted one at her home for her own friends, and I did that, and it's so much fun. So I'm happy to have you all here today. All kinds of questions are welcome, but I think the first point I really want to make is that chocolate, good chocolate, is not candy. So as Marnie had said about holding back, no, don't hold back when we're eating good chocolate. That means a high cacao content. We are doing our bodies and our minds and our spirit a favor. It really is a health food. It has the most antioxidants of any food on the planet. So those antioxidants are one of the biggest health benefits of chocolate because it gives us great resilience. It helps, there's a lot of serotonin produced from pure cocoa. So that helps our moods. So when we're eating pure chocolate, and by pure chocolate, I mean 70% cocoa content or higher is considered a dark chocolate and thereby considered a fairly pure chocolate. If you are a brave soul, try eventually to eat 100% pure chocolate, and it is wonderful if it's properly roasted. If it's roasted at too high a temperature, you will get bitter notes. But the chocolate makers who are astute at their work know exactly what temperature to use for what kind of bean they're using. All right, I'll back up a little bit because now that we're talking about exactly what is chocolate, it is actually called Theobroma cacao. So Theobroma cacao is the name of the tree on which cocoa grows. Now we can interchange the words cacao and cocoa. Normally people use the word cocoa to talk about processed cocoa beans, but in today's world, they're interchanged freely. So cocoa means what's growing on the tree and the beans that it produces. And I'll show you in this bag here, this is what cocoa beans look like. They're the size of almonds. And once they're roasted, these I got in Costa Rica. Once they're roasted, you can eat them in the form of nibs. So you may have seen at health food store cocoa nibs. Well, those are ground cocoa beans that are in little particles. So you can use them in baking, but just keep in mind that they don't melt. They're not like chocolate chips. They're pieces of pure chocolate gold, like solid chocolate pieces. So they're great in salads too, because I love the crunch of them in a salad, and I always put them in my chili. I just made a pot of chili yesterday, and I put a bunch of cocoa nibs in there. You can also put in dark chocolate discs or whatever, but it gives your chili such a richness. So I'm just trying to make you realize that I'm not talking about chocolate candy at all today, except to warn you not to eat it. I'm talking about cacao and cocoa in its pure form that's artisanally made and will actually help your body, your mind, and your spirit versus create pimples and greasy hair and all the bad things like rotting our teeth when we were kids. We ate that kind of chocolate that's mostly sugar. And so we did get pimples from it and we got cavities from it and whatnot. But in today's world, we have the choice to eat pure, healthy chocolate. So I'm going to encourage you to look for it. And I will explain about reading chocolate labels a little bit later. Getting back to where cocoa grows, normally it grows 20 degrees north or south of the equator. Now, because of global warming, that has actually been extended to about 22 to 24 degrees north or south of the equator, because they're actually growing cocoa now in Hawaii, on the Hawaiian islands of Maui, the Big Island, and Oahu. There is quite a bit of cocoa being grown. And as well, um, in places like Florida, believe it or not, they have now been growing a little bit of cocoa in South Florida. So climate change is having some good effects by extending the areas in which cocoa grows, but it's also having a devastating effect on it because of the severe storms, the flooding, the fires, the heat without moisture. Cocoa crops are extremely sensitive to disease and to harm. And countries like Cuba have lost their entire cocoa crop due to hurricanes in the past. And so I just wanted to alert you that that's why they're predicting such a huge increase in the cost of cocoa and chocolate in years to come. Because in the past, West Africa, and that means the countries of Ivory Coast, Ghana, maybe Cameroon a little bit, and Uganda, they were growing 70% of the world's cocoa. But there's been such severe drought in those countries lately that their cocoa production has gone way down. So it's fortunate that other regions have been able to pick up some of that slack and provide us with really tasty beans that are made into artisan chocolate. So to make it more clear, in North America, we have Mexico as the primary grower of cacao. So there's many parts of Mexico. Chiapas and Tabasco are the two biggest cocoa growing regions. But Mexican chocolate has come a long way. If you're like me and have been traveling to Mexico for years, you may recall that Mexican chocolate used to be very gritty, and it used to be, I found, a rather unpleasant feeling in the mouth. And part of the wonders of good chocolate is the sensuality of the texture. And that's why we're going to do a little tasting later so that I can encourage you how to select and to taste chocolate so that it really increases your enjoyment factor. And then the Caribbean is full of great chocolate. So a lot of the Caribbean islands like Grenada, to Trinidad and Tobago, let's see now, I'm talking also about Central America. So Central America has Costa Rica, Belize, Honduras, Guatemala. All those countries produce terrific tasting beans. And so if you are traveling to those places, as Marilyn mentioned on her own experiences about finding a wonderful place to learn about chocolate in Portugal, it's true. No matter where you travel, even Iceland makes fantastic chocolate. But keep in mind, they don't grow the cocoa. So when you are eating chocolate that's either made in Canada, the United States, Iceland, for example, they're importing beans, which normally come from Amsterdam, is the chief cocoa port in the world. And so cocoa is grown in the different regions and it's sent to Amsterdam, and then it's sent by ship to different destinations to may have it made into chocolate. So people always say to me, well, where is the best chocolate from? And I try to explain that it's best to buy the chocolate that's made in the same country the beans are grown, because that way those cocoa beans haven't traveled thousands of miles before they're roasted and processed and made into chocolate. They're made right where the cocoa is grown. And so they have that jungle taste to them. And it is remarkably different than eating a highly processed cocoa and chocolate. But unfortunately, as I mentioned, it's not growing nearby. In addition to some in Mexico, Caribbean, and Central America, we also have cocoa grown in South America, primarily Brazil, Ecuador, and Peru. And in Eurasia, like Vietnam, the Philippines, even some grown in Australia. So it is grown in many different parts of the world. And the cocoa itself tastes quite different. It's just like with wine, we have the terroir at play, where the grapes taste different according to the geography, what the substance of the soil is. It's exactly the same with Theobroma cacao. The beans will taste different depending on where they are grown. And in, say, for instance, Central and South America, because they grow so much tropical fruit, you have often very fruity, natural notes in the cocoa itself. Nothing added. That's just right in the cocoa itself. And in some countries like Ecuador, we have very nutty tasting cocoa notes. And so the chocolate is very different. See, Peru, it's very acidic and fruity, whereas Ecuador, which is right next to Peru, has the nutty taste. So it has that real richness without the acidic content. Any questions at this point from anything I've said? Marilyn, is there anything?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I'm just checking the chat room. There is, whoops, I just lost it. The question from Glenn is, where can you buy cocoa nibs?
Okay, good question. You can get them at health food stores. I think you can also get them at the bulk barn, but good ones you would get at like Vita Health. And we used to have Sangsters out here in Gimli. I live in the Interlake, and I used to buy some at Sangsters. I'm not sure if they're around in other areas still or if they're gone, but Vita Health definitely has, just like the bag I held up here, you would be able to get cocoa nibs. So they would be pieces of these cocoa beans that you could use in food prep, or you can even eat a handful, put it on your fruit or yogurt. It's fabulous. You get that really beautiful, rich flavor, and you're doing your body a favor as well. Any other questions, Marilyn, before we move on?
No, that was it
Okay. All
for
right.
now.
Okay, very good. So we'll talk a little bit about the fact that cocoa does grow so many different places, but no matter where you are in the world, believe it or not, whenever I've been on my travels, researching, writing about chocolate, being a judge at a chocolate event, like a chocolate festival, or being a chocolate speaker, if you say the word chocolate or chocolata or chocolat, everybody knows what that means, and it always brings a great big smile to people's faces. So I really encourage you to seek out chocolate events when you're traveling. Marilyn had mentioned about Porto having a World of Wine center where they featured things on the port and the wine as well as cocoa. And when I was in Portugal last year, I attended the chocolate festival in Óbidos, Portugal. And that's a really unique community. It's got a medieval wall, and they have fabulous cocoa and chocolate sculptures and all kinds of different activities, and you can taste lots of chocolate too made. So don't be afraid to look for chocolate events when you're visiting a country. And I do encourage you to visit my website, which is chocolatour.net. And I have chocolate festivals and events listed by country. So say, for instance, if you're going to Portugal, you could type in Portuguese made chocolate or Portuguese chocolate events or something like that. And it should bring something up like that so that it could help you when you're traveling. I find that the chocolate festivals are so fun because each country has one that's extremely different. I was a speaker at one in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, where they celebrate cocoa with vanilla because vanilla and cocoa are often grown in similar regions, as are cocoa and coffee. Coffee requires the same kind of growing conditions as cocoa does. And so you will see them growing close to one another. So do seek out chocolate events when you're traveling different places and even across Canada. We have some excellent chocolate being made in Canada. One of my favorites is Soma. And here is Soma, so it's Soma, made in Toronto. And this is a really cute little package of 5 different bars that they've packaged together. And they're all different ones featuring nuts. And it's such a great company, Soma, because they buy the beans directly from the growers. And so they get the beans sent directly to them. They roast them according to their own roasting specifications, and then they make fantastic chocolate out of them. Another one of my favorite Canadian ones is Cyrene, and this one is from Victoria, British Columbia. And I love them because they really specialize in dark milk chocolate. When you're looking for healthy chocolate that has just a bit of creaminess to it, try the dark milk chocolate. Dark milk chocolate is usually at least 60% cocoa or higher. So 60 to 70 is the range for dark milk chocolate. Sometimes it might be just slightly under 60 and sometimes just slightly over. But the difference is it's dark chocolate to which a little bit of milk powder has been added in the final stages of production. So you get the creaminess and silkiness of milk chocolate without all the sugar and the extra calories from the milk. So that's a tip I'd like you to think about. And in Manitoba, in Winnipeg, for instance, we do have several good chocolate makers. My favorite happens to be Decadence Chocolate on Sherbrooke in Winnipeg because I really enjoy the playfulness of Helen Staines. She's originally from the UK, and so she has this playful spirit with respect to her chocolate creations. And so if you're buying chocolate either for yourself or for someone else that really enjoys fun things in their flavors, I would point you to Decadence Chocolates because Helen has a lot of really fun flavor blends. Like she makes a series called the Elements bars, and they are all different with different flavors, but they all pack a real wow, and they're pure. They're pretty healthy. There's one that's made with sponge toffee, so it may have a bit more sugar, but most of them feature nuts and sometimes some fruits or seeds, and they're just so good. So I really encourage you to look them up. Probably a lot of you have had Constance Pop Chocolatier Chocolate. She's located in St. Boniface, and she does some nice work as well. She has a Manitoba bar that features all Manitoba ingredients other than the cacao comes from somewhere else. And she also has some very good spicy Mexican truffles. So every chocolate maker specializes in different things, and that's why it's a great idea to look at their websites, see what they do specialize in. And if you like certain things, like I love chocolate covered caramel. And so I'll often seek out chocolate makers that specialize in caramel. And there are some incredible ones for that too. And Helen at Decadence does make excellent caramels as well. So something to think about here in our own backyard. But when we're traveling abroad, somebody had mentioned that you've got some members in Arizona right now. Well, there are some fantastic chocolate makers in Arizona that you can look up. And again, it's on my website, quite a number of ones that are making chocolate right from the beans. And when I was in Phoenix, in Scottsdale, they were actually having beautiful chocolate tours, chocolate walking tours that you could go on. So I'm not sure if they still do it, but look it up and see if they are doing them still. Chocolate. It's called Scottsdale Chocolate Walking Tours for those in Arizona. So no matter where you go, you're going to find something that's really cool about chocolate, and it's just going to be almost everywhere. All right, Marilyn, have you got some more questions on the go there?
No, oh, wait, I think I have one more.
Okay.
Let me just check here. Uh-huh. It's, how about Morden's? And also, can you give a list of chocolate websites? So what about
Okay.
Morden's chocolates?
Okay.
Start with that.
Morden's is an institution in Manitoba. They've been, I think, operating about 66 years now. And when I was there interviewing Fred Morden, he was making all kinds of creations, and his father had worked in it for years, and now his sister manages the company. But they specialize in those coconut covered marshmallows they're known for. They also have a really good item that's bear claws. And so there, because we have polar bears in Manitoba, they do a polar bear claw. So it's made with white chocolate and it's got cashews for the claws. They're really cute. So no matter, like I say, where you go, you'll find unique products. And I highly do recommend Morden's chocolates because they use a lot of good quality cocoa, and they're also quite creative, and they like to celebrate Manitoba as their home province. And so some stuff is quite uniquely Manitoban. And as far as chocolate websites go, well, there's far too many to mention. Like I say, if you start at mine, I can help you with different locations and also explain to you the different kinds of chocolates you might be looking for. So let's back up a bit. We talked about where cacao grows, what the name of the tree is, what regions make the best, grow the best cocoa. And I also want to mention Cuba because I think a lot of people go to Cuba for vacation. And Cuba grows excellent cocoa, but as I mentioned earlier, they lost a lot of their crop to hurricanes. But if you're lucky enough to get there, they have, unfortunately, the chocolate that's for domestic use is only 30% cocoa and 70% sugar. But the ones that are made for exportation are 70% cocoa and only 30% sugar. So a lot of European chocolate makers and even some in North America are using Cuban beans and making extremely high grade bars out of those Cuban beans.
I
All
have
right.
one more question here.
Yeah. Mhm.
Uh, where can we buy the chocolates that you have recommended? Where can we buy them in Winnipeg? So Soma and Cyrene.
Okay, those you would order directly online from
Uh,
those companies. And if you order enough, they will ship them for free. Another really good one in Canada that's one of my absolute favorites is Hummingbird chocolate. And they're based in Almont, Ontario, which is just outside of Ottawa. And I highly recommend them because they are so ethical. It's run by a husband and wife team who met doing international aid work in Afghanistan, of all places. They fell in love, they got married, and they wanted to do something to help the planet. But at the same time, they enjoyed chocolate and cacao. So they decided to start making ethical chocolate. And I want to explain what that means. Ethical chocolate is meaning that it is grown where the farmer is kept in mind. So, in other words, fair payment is made to the farmer, where it is respectful of the land. And so we're hoping that they're not doing a lot of clear cutting and planting palm oil, palms for palm oil, because we know that that's not a healthy thing to grow. But cacao is a really sustainable product that can, if it can survive the disease and the climate change it's facing, it is a crop that should be cherished by the regions that grow it. So always look for cocoa and chocolate wherever you're going, but try to find the source of the cocoa. Say for instance, if we go back to this Cyrene chocolate, it tells me that these beans are from Guatemala. So this wonderful coffee mocha bar that I love so much is made with the beans from Guatemala in a dark milk chocolate. I also mentioned how good dark milk chocolate is, but it's featuring beautiful coffee that's roasted right in Victoria. So they're having locally roasted beans for cocoa and for the coffee. Absolutely stunning if you can get your hands on a mocha bar. They're limited edition. Again, order online from Cyrene, but they're fabulous, fabulous bars. And his bars aren't that expensive. You'd be prepared to pay approximately $8 for a Canadian-made good quality chocolate bar. And I mentioned in the material I was sending Marilyn before we began this presentation, Lindt is a really good product if you're in the beginning of your chocolate exploration, because you can usually get Lindt bars for about $4. They used to be two for $5 at Shoppers if you're like me and are always looking for good deals. But because the price of cocoa has gone up so much, you're lucky if you can get one for $4. But they're really good. This one here that I have, the one that's sea salt, is unfortunately only 47% cacao. So it's a milk chocolate. It's not a dark chocolate, but it's absolutely, they call it dark. That's sometimes confusing. You see on the label, they call it dark, but in the world of chocolate, 47% is not considered dark. It's not even really considered dark milk. It's considered milk. But when you look at that chocolate, it does have a darker tone to it. But don't be fooled by the color. It's the percentage of the cocoa that makes it good quality dark chocolate.
We
All
have
right.
another comment here
Okay.
for anyone who is in the Victoria area. One of our attendees says, I'm very fond of Rogers chocolates, especially their dark chocolate.
Okay. Yes, Rogers has come a long way. It is Canada's oldest chocolate company, and they've expanded their repertoire as to what they're producing and also their ethics. We were talking about sustainable and ethical chocolate earlier. Another competitor to Rogers would be Purdy's. And we do have Purdy's chocolate here in Manitoba.
Great.
There's one in St. Vital Center Mall. There's one in Polo Park Mall. And I really love Purdy's. They do make bean to bar chocolate, meaning they make chocolate right from the cocoa beans, but they more specialize in chocolate confections, but still very good quality and healthy chocolate that you can get there. One of my favorite things that Purdy's makes is the Sweet Georgia Browns, which is their version of a turtle. So it's dark chocolate with roasted pecans and a really pure caramel. They're just absolutely delicious and one of our favorite treats in our house. So, but they are making, they call now themselves 100% sustainably grown cocoa. So always look for that when you're looking on, when you're reading chocolate labels, look and read on the labels where the cocoa is grown, if it does tell you, or at the very least, what percentage of cocoa is in the product, and hopefully sugar is not the first ingredient, because when sugar is the first ingredient, we're on the verge of eating chocolate candy versus eating healthy chocolate. I'll expand a bit on the health benefits of chocolate. I mentioned that they have the highest antioxidants of any food on the planet. So if you do use some cocoa nibs or cocoa beans in your food products, whether it's salads, your chili, your gravy, I put crushed cocoa powder in my gravy because it adds this richness to the gravy. And everybody always says, oh, wow, your gravy is so good. But it's from the richness from the cacao. So for gravy, you would have to use cocoa powder. And Costco sells a really good quality pure cocoa powder. But make sure when you're looking at cocoa powder, you're getting pure cocoa powder and not something that's got a ton of sugar added to it. So again, reading the labels will really help you make better chocolate choices. Even if you're diabetic, you can eat pure dark chocolate because there's something in the pure dark chocolate that actually helps diabetics with their ability to process cocoa and chocolate. Whereas if they eat regular chocolate, it sends their numbers going the wrong way. If they eat 100% pure chocolate or at least 75% or pure, it's okay, but I'm talking just a square this big. So that would be like the square size of one square in a Lindt chocolate bar. And we mentioned about serotonin being so good for our moods. I mean, everybody needs a little pick me up in our long winters. Well, having a piece, meaning a piece or two of chocolate, is going to send your mood up high because it's got serotonin and dopamine that our bodies produce that make us feel good. I was interviewing a chocolate maker in Brussels, Belgium, and he looked at me across the table and he said, Doreen, I'm like a drug dealer. I make people feel good every day. And that says it all. Chocolate is meant to make you feel good. But if you reach for the good chocolate, the best chocolate that's got the least amount of sugar, it not only makes you feel good, it's good for your body, good for your spirit, and good for your mind. All right. Now let's talk more about doing some tasting because we're now in the final half hour here. Any questions before we start the process of tasting, Marilyn?
No, no, we're good.
Okay.
Carry on with the
Okay.
tasting.
Okay, so let's start that then. If anybody did buy a Lindt bar, as we mentioned, that might be a good place to start. So turn it over and look at the label. And like I said, in the one that I'm holding in my hand, it says ingredients. Unfortunately, this one is sugar #1. But if you like this sea salt, it's an excellent bar. So I wouldn't eat it all the time, and I wouldn't eat a lot of it at one point. But it says if you have three squares of it, it's 160 calories. I probably would only have 2 in one day. So keep that in mind because sugar is the #1 ingredient. We're not going to be able to eat as much. If we were eating the Cyrene chocolate that I talked about earlier, on its ingredients list, cacao beans are listed as the #1 ingredient, and organic cane sugar is the #2 ingredient. So sometimes, like with the dark milk chocolate, they do add a little bit of organic cane sugar to the chocolate. The artisan chocolate makers never use white processed sugar. They use the organically grown cane sugar, which is grown in the same regions that the cacao is grown to provide a very natural and gentle sweetness to the chocolate. All right, let's open the bar. So just open the carton if you've got some chocolate there to taste. And you know, one thing that really turns me on is when we're eating chocolate where they have really nice labels because most of us women enjoy seeing a pretty box of chocolate or a pretty carton. And so, you know, some of the chocolate makers I spoke of, like Hummingbird, when you'd open the cardboard carton like this one, it would have pictures of the equipment that they use to roast the beans. So I forgot to talk about the growing part, and I'll just do that quickly to give you a better information. The beans grow on trees. We mentioned they're Theobroma cacao. This is the largest size of a cocoa pod. So these are giant. They're from Peru. Here's a smaller one from Hawaii or Peru. Yeah, from Hawaii. And this one shows the cocoa beans in it. You see, I mentioned that they are the size of almonds. And that's what we see inside growing in this pod. These are called cocoa pods. And so then those pods are broken open with machete knives. Usually there's no mechanics on growing or processing cocoa. And that's another reason why it's so expensive. So everything is grown by hand and then harvested by hand. The trees are the size of an apple tree. And they have these massive leaves on them. Look at the size of this leaf. They've got massive leaves on the trees, and they will grow little tiny orchid flowers that then become the pods. And when the pods get fully grown, as I showed you, then they cut them with a machete or some other snipping tool. They fall to the ground, and then they use the machete knives to slice them open. And inside the pod is a white goop. So think of those beans as being like grapes. They're attached like that, like a string of grapes, but they're housed in a white goo. It's called a baba in some countries, and it's just called a housing in some other countries. And it's sweet. So the children help the parents harvest in places like Africa and South America. This is not child labor if it's the family growing it and their own children are helping. That's just like my grandparents had farms and the children helped with all the farm tools. That's the same as the cocoa. But in Africa, in West Africa, what was happening was child labor, where they stole the children from their families to go work on cocoa farms, or they bought the children, to go and work on the farms. And it's really, really hard work. So that's something that was brought to light about the cocoa and the child labor. So now companies are making it their business to make sure that the cocoa is grown humanely and that it's not using child labor. All right, so first, after the beans are picked, they're dried in the sun, and usually for a week. That dries out the beans, and then they are put into fermentation boxes. And as the beans ferment, the flavor levels increase. It's just like with grapes. There's so many different similarities between processing grapes for wine and growing the cocoa beans to be made into chocolate. So those beans are fermented in wooden boxes for a week, and then they are roasted. If the chocolate is being made right where they're grown, they'll be made right into chocolate. So you get really fresh tasting cocoa. As I mentioned, if they are just finished the fermentation process and then bagged to be sent to makers to grow, to make the chocolate from, they would roast them on site. So those beans can't possibly taste quite as fresh as the ones that are used right at the origin where the cocoa is grown. All right, now let's rip open the housing that our chocolate's in. In this case, I've got a foil housing. In the case of Cyrene, they market their chocolate in a bag like this, so you can close it after you have a bag. Remember, we're not eating the whole bar in one sitting. We're having 1 to 2 pieces. So with our Lindt chocolate, let's break off 1 square. So this 1 square is optimally the amount you might want to eat every day, maybe 2 squares, but that's it, not more. Now take the square to your nose and just smell it. Oh my goodness, this smells so delicious. Like before you even eat it, just smelling it helps to open your senses up, and that will really increase your enjoyment factor. Then break off a little tiny piece like this, okay? And let it melt in your mouth. So the chocolate will go to the roof of your mouth and let it melt naturally. I'm not going to put it in my mouth because I'm going to keep talking while you go through this experience. But as the chocolate melts in your mouth, first of all, you will remember that snap sound you just heard when you broke that piece. And that is the way chocolate is supposed to sound. You're supposed to get that snap. So first of all, you look at the chocolate, it's got a little glisten to it, a little shine. You break it open, you smell it, you hear that snap, and then you let it melt in your mouth. Now, because the bar I have is flavored with natural sea salt, that flavor will begin to release itself as the chocolate melts. And if you have, Marilyn mentioned she had a Madagascar bar that she bought from Lindt. So in that case, she's going to be tasting the fruitiness and the acidity of the Madagascar beans. Now, when I say acidity, I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean that those notes are at the acidic end of the spectrum. So it just means that you're tasting more fruit and more of that natural acidic flavor that's found in some cocoa beans. Whereas if we were eating Ecuadorian chocolate, we would taste more nuttiness. And so they are grown in adjoining countries, but because of the elevation and because of the terroir, meaning what is grown there naturally. So Peru grows so much fruit. That is why the cocoa beans have that acidic flavor. And you would taste mango, you would taste papaya, you would taste some of the other fruits that may be grown in the soil where they're growing the same cacao plant right next to the fruit. And as that fruit decomposes in the soil, it's absorbed into the soil, and then the cacao will taste more like that. So what did you think of tasting that piece of chocolate slowly, letting it melt slowly so that you could feel those flavor notes, you could taste them, just as you do with a sip of wine. You let that sit in your mouth a bit, you swoosh it around, and then you get an enhanced ability to taste the flavors of the true product. So that's what we've done with the tasting of the chocolate today. Anybody care to mention whether they've been able to ascertain some flavor notes as they tasted their chocolate? Okay, what we're going to do then is we're going to go on and talk about different forms of chocolate that you may wish to buy, because not everybody likes to eat dark chocolate or pure chocolate, but I want to encourage you that even if you're looking at other kinds of chocolate, you can get fabulous chocolate truffles. If anybody, for instance, is going to South America, Peru is a great example of where they grow the cocoa and not only make it into fabulous bars, but truffles that are made with fruit, the fruit that's grown there and the cocoa beans that are grown there. And it's made into just the most amazing chocolate I've ever tasted in my life, because it's like you're in the jungle and you are tasting that absolutely fabulous chocolate. So again, I profile some of those companies on my site because there are some that will just blow you away. I find that the only way you're going to get a lot of those chocolates are if you're traveling to them, because they don't grow enough to export. And now postage costs are so high. That's the other issue with getting chocolate from some of the growing countries, that by the time it gets to you, the price might be double what you saw on the website. So keep your eye open when you do find chocolate companies that you like. Subscribe to their newsletters, because they always offer sales to their subscribers. And I know Hummingbird has, I think they have a sale on right now because they just won a bunch of awards. So they're celebrating their awards. And the International Cacao Society, they have the International Chocolate Awards I intended in Paris. They're held in Paris every year. And you can go there and you can see chocolate sculptures, life-size, like Florida ceiling sculptures that are made from pure chocolate. You can taste the chocolate. You can watch different chocolate fashion shows. They actually make clothing which is adorned with pure chocolate, and it's really fun to watch. And so the world of chocolate, it includes so many different experiences you can have. And if you open your mind to looking for destinations that celebrate chocolate, you'll never be sorry. Grenada is a perfect example like that. The best chocolate festival I've ever attended in my life was in Grenada. And that is because it runs for an entire week. And they have chocolate makers come from all over the world to celebrate with them. They have cooking demonstrations where they're cooking with the raw and fresh cacao and making it into different things. They have chocolate demonstrations where chocolate makers will demonstrate. And you can learn, you can go to the cocoa plantations because they grow a lot of very fine grade cacao in the Caribbean, and you can go and see it being made. You can taste. In those tropical countries, they often have the cocoa drink, because the Mexicans and Aztecs, they started with the cocoa drink, which is actually made with hot water and then some cinnamon and cacao. And once in a while, they might have added a little bit of cane sugar to sweeten it. But it's so different than the hot chocolate that we North Americans are used to drinking. Most of the ones that we have a high milk content in them. And but there are, even in Mexico, you can get really good milk chocolate, hot chocolate. But I still think Switzerland makes the very best of that. I had the Swiss chocolate made into hot chocolate, which just was so creamy, so rich, but of course, high in caloric content too. So these are things to keep in mind when we're eating chocolate. Sometimes it's okay to have a treat that may have more sugar in it, but I really encourage you to look for the pure stuff because it's going to really change how you look at chocolate.
We've got a
Yeah.
couple of comments,
Okay.
and I'm going to add my comment when you mentioned chocolate. I mentioned, having the chocolate and wine pairing in Malta.
Yes.
Well, the chocolate store had, I think, 40 different varieties of truffles, and they had hot chocolate that was just melted chocolate with whipped cream on top. It was totally decadent. Oh my
Yes.
God, we had to go over
Yes.
there because, of course, after a day of touring the island, we had to have chocolate. It was amazing. Uh, Someone has said that their Lindt bar has 78% cacao and no sugar, but it's still 170 calories for 3 squares. That's not
Oh.
so bad. That's a good 170 calories. It's healthy. The other comment is strength is the ability to break the chocolate bar into 4 pieces with your bare hands, then just eat one piece. I don't have that strength. Therefore, there is no such thing as eating 1 or 2 squares a day. I love it. I'm with
Okay.
you. I'm with you, Glenn. Yeah,
Well,
what is this 1 or 2?
but the thing is, what I do, I mean, I'll confess, and I have this in my book. If you get a chocolate craving, resisting it is futile. Then just go and have a piece of chocolate. Because I used to try to divert myself. If I was having a chocolate craving, I'd have some nuts, I'd have pieces of cauliflower, I'd have an apple, everything you could ever imagine. But nothing will satisfy the chocolate craving like a piece of chocolate. So if you're having that craving, then just have a piece of chocolate and get on with it, because nothing will stop the craving. Something I also wanted to bring up while we have a moment yet is the personalities of chocolate. And I touched on it a little bit earlier, but now I wanted to get into a little bit of the basics. I have a chapter in my book that talks about the personalities of chocolate, and they range from purist. So a purist is somebody who wants to eat either 100% pure cacao in their chocolate, or they don't want any flavor enhancements. They just want the chocolate. So it may have a little bit of cacao butter or cocoa butter, and that's still pure. That's grown on the cocoa plant. Only it's extracted when the beans are being winnowed or willowed. They're winnowed rather. They're where they're being ground into a paste. The beans then become very smooth, and it's still pure, it's still good for you, but it's for the pure at heart. So don't go for 100% bar unless you're willing to know that it's not going to be sweet. It's going to be rich, it's going to be fulfilling, and it's going to be good for you. Then there's the playful personality, and that's for somebody who wants something kind of unique. I mentioned about Helen Staines at Decadence Chocolates. I would put her in the playful category because she has a lot of fun things in her shop that are still very, very good. A lot of it has a high cocoa content, but it makes you smile. And then there's the elegant category, and that's for somebody that wants, somebody that buys Louis Vuitton bags and only has Gucci products or whatever, somebody that really wants something that's very, very elegant. I think there's nobody more elegant in the world of chocolate than Z Chocolat. They're profiled on my site as well. It's the small letter Z or Z, and then the words chocolat in French, Chocolat, and they are based in Aix-en-Provence in southern France. And they have the most magnificent truffles. Everything is so elegantly done. And actually, Chinese New Year is coming up very shortly. And they do a Chinese New Year special every year. They do celebrating for Valentine's Day too. But I remember last year for Chinese New Year, I got for my husband a box from Z Chocolat celebrating the Chinese New Year. And those truffles are absolutely the most elegant chocolate you will ever eat. They're not fancy to look at, but the taste is so spectacular, so pure, so delicious. They're worth the very high price tag that they come on. And they pack them in wooden boxes. When you get a refill for the box, they'll come in a cardboard. But the original boxes, the first one I ever had was mahogany wood. And then they also make them in a sandalwood, which is a little bit more cost effective. But therefore, the elegant chocolate lover on your list. It may be you. And then there's the exotic form of chocolate, and that was the Peruvian one I was talking about. And for the life of me, I can't remember the fellow's name I know his name is Giovanni, but his chocolate name, it starts with R, and I can get it to you if anybody's going. It's very, very exotic and very, very pure tasting. And then there's the intellectual category. And when I was in Barcelona, I visited the chocolate maker there, Enrique Rovera, and I would call him an intellectual chocolate maker. He had, for example, the Imagine collection. So he had John Lennon's CD, we all know the song Imagine, and he had planets. So that the CD was the center of the universe, and it said Imagine right on it. And then chocolate truffles in circles as the universe, like the Milky Way around it, and each one's so beautifully different, and it's so spectacularly done. Again, these things can never be cheap when you're buying directly from the chocolate maker. But again, if you want to blow someone's mind with something that's so unique, you'll never get it anywhere else. If you happen to be in Spain and you happen to be in Barcelona, buying that chocolate would just be something you'd never forget. It's absolutely worth it. So think about when you're buying chocolate, if you're buying it for yourself, what do you want that chocolate to do for you? If you're buying it for someone, what's their personality like? Are they playful? Do they love to laugh and giggle and look at something fun? Or are they elegant or intellectual? Or they like something really exotic and far out, something like yuru, that they have the different yuru, I believe it's Japanese fruit that's now being used in a lot of places. And speaking of Japanese chocolate, there's a place in North Vancouver that is called Nana Chocolate, and it's really unique, made in the true Japanese fashion, and the guy who makes it's from Japan, and it's fabulous. It's cut into tiny little squares. Again, I profile it on my website under North Vancouver, and it's so good. And he does have flavor infusions in that, but again, that's totally exotic. It's something that people won't get anywhere else. You can order it online from him, or if you happen to be in Vancouver or in BC, you may be able to get it at different shops as well. So that kind of gives you an idea of the personalities of chocolate, and how I've categorized them, and how it may help you make the right chocolate selections, whether it's for yourself or for someone you love. With Valentine's Day coming up and the Chinese New Year coming up, it's 2 reasons to buy good chocolate for yourself or someone you love. Marilyn, any other questions we can answer? We've got 5 minutes here.
No, there aren't, but I love the idea of pairing your chocolate according to the personality of the person you're gifting it to. And as you were saying that, I was thinking of several friends and what would work for them. So, whole
Absolutely.
new mission.
I think that especially for women, right? We are turned on by packaging, right? Like for me, if I'm looking at whether it's chocolate or some other product, or even like liquor, sometimes the packaging can draw you in, and I think that chocolatiers that put that extra effort into their packaging really make it an experience that you can truly enjoy. And I've got, I think, just a couple minutes while we're talking about that. I was going to show you just a couple of products that will appeal to the chocolate lovers. This is a chocolate liqueur from Italy that is so creamy, so delicious, and so pure. And then for the whiskey drinkers, this one's made in Montreal, and it's a chocolate whiskey. They also have a gingerbread one. It's fantastic. And also, you can buy the cocoa beans in addition to the cocoa nibs at health food stores. So just some things to look for when you want to expand your chocolate knowledge and your chocolate experience.
Great, thank you. Do you want to tell us about your chocolate facial? You sent out with your bio, you sent a photo of you with a chocolate facial.
Oh,
Wow, there's decadence.
Thanks for asking about that, Marilyn. Yes, The chocolate festivals and chocolate events you will be able to experience around the world have much more than just chocolate tastings, chocolate pairings. They often have chocolate spas right on the premises. And when I was in Hershey investigating Hershey chocolate in Pennsylvania, I had a chocolate bath with the chocolate kisses in it and whatnot. That was so cute. But in the tropical areas like Grenada and Trinidad, I've had the pure chocolate rubs where they rub the molten cacao on you and then they cover you either in banana leaves or plastic and cook you for an hour in that warmth, and then your skin feels like silk and it smells beautiful and you feel beautiful. I was in Costa Rica at the chocolate festival, and the woman who gave me a chocolate massage and body wrap was from Edmonton. It's just funny, no matter where you go, you're going to find Canadians working in exotic destinations, but she gave me the best chocolate body wrap I've ever had anywhere in the world. So if you happen to be going to Costa Rica, visit Puerto Viejo. It is the chocolate capital of Costa Rica.
Wow, that sounds really the height of decadence.
It is, truthfully. And you know, like they have chocolate facials. The one I think I sent you the picture of, that was from Grenada. And that was really cool too. And I had a facial done also at Hershey. And there's something they're always expensive, but again, it's an experience that you'll never find at any kind of other event like that. Like, so when you're at a chocolate festival, seek out everything they have to offer, and you'll never forget it. It'll be something that will stay with you the rest of your life.
Well, we have comments from people thanking you for your presentation and for your passion, and I would like to echo that as well. Um, this is not the first time I've heard your presentation, but everyone is a little bit different, and that's wonderful. I learn something new every time. I like the idea of tossing some chocolate in with chili, and I'm thinking, what about stew?
Oh,
Winter
for
is good
sure.
stew time, so it'd be good with stew, and
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Dark chocolate and beef go really, really well. Like I didn't mention that I often do, in addition to in-person chocolate tastings, pairings, I also do chocolate dinners where I work collaboratively with a chef to create a five-course menu where we're featuring the savory side of chocolate and cacao in dishes that will just absolutely blow your mind. So it's a really fun experience, and it just shows you that chocolate is not just candy anymore.
I,
Um,
I do
maybe
see
you
you
could
have,
let us tell us your website again so that people
Okay,
can check you out.
sure. Thank you very much. It's chocolatour.net. So CHOCOLATOUR.net. And on there, I list chocolate from all the countries that I've been to researching chocolate and cacao. And I also have my book. I don't have many of them left because it was limited edition, but I did win a Reader's Favorite Award, an International Reader's Favorite Award for that book. And I'm very proud of that because it was such a pleasure to write it and research the topic of chocolate and cacao, and I'll never stop doing that.
Well, thank you so
we can
much.
also send all of this information out to everyone who has attended as well. So we'll send it out as a follow-up email to everyone. So if you don't
Thanks.
get it now, you'll get it then.
Thank you. This has been fabulous, Doreen. And again, you know, I learn something new every time I hear your presentations. I love your enthusiasm, and gosh darn, it just makes me want to become a chocoholic.
You know what, Marilyn? I want you to call yourself a chocolate enthusiast.
Oh,
Don't
I like that.
don't call yourself, or call yourself a chocolate adventurist. That's what I do. I'm a chocolate adventurist or a chocolate enthusiast. I'm not a chocoholic, but I wanted to say one more quick thing before we turn it over to Marnie. Don't be afraid to have a chocogasm. There is something about women. We actually need chocolate, and it does create these really sensual feelings in our bodies. So don't hold back when you need it. Have it.
Love it. Great advice. And thank you again. And now Marnie is going to tell us about her special martinis.
I am. I'm going to show you a little bit about our special martinis. Now, does everyone see me as the large picture there? Because I do not see myself. So,
All right. I can see you fine.
okay, perfect. Thank you. My name is Marnie Strath, and I am the co-president of CARP, as well as a martini aficionado. I call myself that, much like Doreen calls herself a chocolate aficionado, because I've done a lot of studying on martinis, trust me. I make martinis every, Doreen, do you mind putting yours on mute just so that it doesn't change? Thank you. I make martinis every Friday, a different one every single Friday, and I have a YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram posts that I do these. So I'm always coming up with different ones. And I have made chocolate ones in the past, but I thought, well, I'll make a chocolate one today to go with your presentation. So I think that's wonderful. So I'm going to make two different ones. So first off, I'm just showing you what I'm making it in, and it is a Yeti shaker, and they are amazing because I put ice in here an hour or so ago and it's still totally frozen ice. So they are the best kind of a shaker to use if you can. Now, the martini I'm going to make is more traditional. When I say traditional, it includes the chocolate and vodka and Baileys. I had a really hard time finding chocolate here in BC because that's where I am right now. I know they have them in Manitoba, but I did find something that Kahlua made, which is called chocolate sips. And it's brand new and it might still be on it's probably still in the liquor stores. It's really tasty because it's got a bit of a coffee and chocolate flavor to it. So this is not an espresso martini, but it'll still give you that feeling of espresso because of the Kahlua. So my favorite is probably Godiva, although I will give a try to the one that Doreen told us about because that one sounds amazing as well. All right, the first ingredient. Now these are all three of these are equal ingredients, so you make them however big a martini you want. The actual is for 2 ounces of each, and that makes 2 martinis. But I'm just going to make 1.5 ounces of each. So I'll put 1.5 ounces of vodka, 1.5 ounces of Baileys. You gotta love Baileys. And then, of course, your chocolate. So if you're using Godiva, or in this case, the chocolate sips from Kahlua, 1.5 ounces of that. You can see the chocolate. Definitely can see the chocolate color in that one. Now, before we started, I rimmed my glass with chocolate syrup, and I put chocolate on the inside. Of course, that's as much for show as it is anything else, but it's still tasty. Give it a good shake. You want to make sure you shake it a little longer than I just did, but this will be a good start. Pour it in your glass. This looks like chocolate milk. All the way in. Now, you could make this into a real dessert martini and add whipped cream to the top, which I have done in the past, but I'm not going to suggest that this time. We're just going to take her beautiful chocolate, the lid that she was telling us about, and just shave it on top. Just so you've got some on top. That's all you need. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so there is your lovely chocolate martini, a traditional one.
Mm.
Oh, it tastes amazing. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Now, if you don't want so much alcohol, I would replace the Irish cream with half and half, and that would probably work just as well, and it's just as delicious. Okay, that's number one. Number two, different shaker. I have probably in total about 30 martini shakers, and my husband notices every time I bring a new one into the house, I have to hide it for a while until I've had it for a long time, but okay. Ice in the glass. This one is very simple. It is going to use, I'm just going to clean this out a bit. It is going to use vodka again. And this one will have 1.5 ounces, or let's put it this, 2 ounces of vodka. and an ounce and a half of creme de cacao. Now, there's no cream in this. So if you are lactose intolerant, this is another, definitely a good chocolate martini. It's just the way the French call them, creme de cacao, because it's very creamy flavor, or very creamy on your tongue. But it is chocolate as well, even though it's white. So it's white creme de cacao. You can get dark creme de cacao as well. So an ounce and a half of that. Go. Same thing, really good shake. Giving it a good shake breaks up the ice, so you have a little bit of the ice crystal in your glass as well. And same thing, covered in chocolate syrup and all ready to go. Now this one will be totally clear. So it won't look like you're drinking chocolate, but you're definitely drinking chocolate. Again, a little bit of, I think there's still some on my, there it is. A little bit of chocolate on top and you're good to go. Let's try this one. Oh, that's nice. There's nothing creamy about that one. That one tastes, it just tastes chocolate and vodka, and that's it. It's wonderful. I really actually, in my own preference, I prefer the one that does not have the cream in it, but that's only me. That does not mean that you shouldn't try it yourself. So anyway, I'm like I said, I'm happy to share these recipes. I can send them out to everybody afterwards if you didn't get a chance to write them down. They're very good. There is another traditional one that is vodka, chocolate liqueur, creme de cacao, and cream. So you add cream, but you have less of the Baileys. So just a few variations. You do it the way you want to do it. You add whatever you want. You want less alcohol, you put less alcohol. You want more, you add more. If you don't like it too sweet, I don't find either of these very sweet, just so you know. But if you prefer it a little less creamy, if you want to call it, just add more vodka, because there's no real flavor to it and it takes away the sweetness. In any case, those are my two chocolate martinis to go with our chocolate presentation. And I will send you my links to anything if anybody would like to check next Friday and watch me make a couple more martinis at that point too. So anyway, thank you for joining us today. Put that aside. Thank you, Doreen, for the wonderful presentation. And Marilyn, are you going to give us a little bit of an update as to what's going to be happening for our next, or would you like me to do that?
Let me just pull it up here. I think
I
it's.
have it right here if you prefer.
Oh, okay.
Sure. Our next information session will be on February the 20th, Thursday at 2 o'clock, on fears, phobias, and anxiety. It's a Zoom or in-person presentation at the Refit Center. And it'll be hosted by Morgan Willisey, one of our board members. She's an active member of the Manitoba Hypnotherapist Association for the past 23 years. And she is certified as a clinical counseling hypnotherapist. So I'm really looking forward to that one because I've got a few fears. I'm afraid of flying. I fly a lot, but I'm still afraid of flying. So I think she might really help with something like that.
We've had one comment asking if Doreen would mention the name of her book and where it can be purchased.
Thank you. It's called Chocolatier, a quest for the world's best chocolate. And it's volume 1. I was going to do a series, but to tell you the truth, my life veered off in a slightly different direction. So I didn't want to put the amount of work into more additions, but it's available off my website if anybody wants to get it directly from me. I had it on Amazon, but I don't anymore because I'm running out of copies, like I said, so people can get it from there. And Marnie, just one thing about chocolate martinis. You mentioned you're in BC.
Mhm.
Are you anywhere near Nanaimo?
No, that's on the island. We're on the mainland.
Oh, okay. Because one of the best chocolate martinis I ever had was at the Modern Cafe in Nanaimo. It was fantastic.
Well, we have one of our past president is on right now, and she's probably closer to Nanaimo, so we'll have to see if she can go there.
Okay. All right.
All right,
Well,
sounds great.
thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you again, Doreen. That was a fabulous presentation. Certainly learned a lot about chocolate, and I ate that whole little piece that I took the corner off of while we were while we were watching. So it was very good. I can feel the dopamine rush. So you're right. Anyway, thank you all very much. And hopefully we'll see you on the 20th. And we will have this transcript, if anybody is interested in seeing it again, available for people to watch it over again. So thanks all.
Bye, everybody.